Consumer Protection Law. Consumer protection laws are designed to ensure fair competition and the free flow of truthful information in the market. The laws are designed to prevent businesses that engage in fraud or specified unfair practices from gaining an advantage over competitors and may provide additional protection for the weak and those unable to take care of themselves. Consumers' protection laws are a form of government regulation which protects the interests of consumers. In this lesson, we will discuss various regulations relating to consumer protection. It follows from the previous slide that after studying this lesson, you should be able to analyze the Consumer Protection Act 1986, understand the Sale of Goods Act 1979, analyze the Supply of Goods and Services Act 1982, analyze the Consumer Protection or Direct Selling Regulations 2000. The Consumer Protection Act 1986 provides for better protection of consumers. Unlike existing laws which are punitive or preventive in nature, the provisions of this Act are compensatory in nature. The Act is intended to provide simple, speedy, and inexpensive redressal to the consumer's grievances, award relief and compensation wherever appropriate to the consumers. The Act has been amended in 1993 both to extend its coverage and scope to enhance the powers of the redressal machinery. The salient features of this Act are related to product liability and consumer safety. A. It applies to all goods and services unless specifically exempted by central government. B. It covers all the sectors whether private, public and cooperative or any person. The provisions of the Act are compensatory as well as preventive and punitive in nature. C. It enshrines the following rights of consumers: right to protection against the marketing of goods and services which are hazardous to life and property, right to be informed about quality, quantity, potency, purity, standard, and price of goods or services so as to protect the consumers against unfair trade practices, right to be assured wherever possible, access to a variety of goods and services at competitive prices, right to be heard and to be assured that consumers' interests will receive due consideration at the appropriate forum, right to seek redressal against unfair trade practices or unscrupulous exploitation of consumers, right to consumer education. The Act also envisages establishment of consumer protection councils at the central, state, and district levels, whose main objectives will be to promote and protect the right of consumers, to provide a simple, speedy, and inexpensive redressal of consumer grievances. The Act envisages a three-tier quasi-judgmental machinery at the national, state, and district levels. There are National Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission, known as National Commission, State Consumer Dispute Redressal Commissions, known as State Commissions, and District Consumer Dispute Redressal Forum, known as District Forums. The provisions of this Act, in addition to and not in derogation of the provisions of any other law for the time being in force. When a consumer goes shopping, anything he or she buys is covered by a law called Sale of Goods Act 1979. This means that when you buy a product, it should be as described. This means that the item you buy should be the same as any description of it. A description could be what the seller has said to you about the item or something written in a brochure. Fit for purpose. What you buy should be able to do the job that it was made for. Also, goods should be fit for any specific purpose you agreed with the seller at the time of sale. For example, if you were looking to buy a printer and asked the seller if it would work with your computer, then that advice has to be correct. Satisfactory quality. Goods that are of satisfactory quality are free from minor defects of a good appearance and finished strong and safe. A customer can get his money back if an item is faulty, incorrectly described, not fit for purpose. If a customer finds the item doesn't meet these requirements, he can ask for money back. Alternatively, he can request a repair or replacement or claim compensation. But he does not have a right to refund if he changes his mind about a product and decides that he doesn't like it. The Supply of Goods and Services Act 1982 aims to protect consumers against bad workmanship or poor provision of services. It covers contracts for works and materials, as well as contracts for pure services. And remember, This still applies even in everyday situations, such as going to the hairdresser or the city cleaners, where you have no physical contract at all. Just as with the sale of goods, supply of goods and services legislation contains statutory rights, which don't have to be specifically mentioned in any contract but cannot be excluded. These are that supplier will carry out the services with reasonable care and skill, that the work will be carried out in reasonable time unless the time frame has been specifically agreed, that the work will be carried out at reasonable cost unless cost has been specifically agreed upon. The legislation also details the remedies which are available to consumers in the event that any of these statutory terms are breached. If the goods do not correspond with the description or are not of satisfactory quality or not fit for purpose, the customer can reject the good and is entitled to his money back. The rights of customers under law are against the supplier rather than the manufacturer, and a manufacturer's guarantee does not take those rights away. Once goods have been accepted, the customer loses his rights to reject them and therefore claim back what he has paid. Traders' ability to limit their own liability is restricted by the Unfair Contract Term Act, 1977, under which traders cannot exclude or limit liability for death or personal injury arising from negligence, but can exclude or restrict their liability for other loss or damage arising from negligence, providing exclusion clause meets the test of reasonableness. The intention of the regulation is to increase consumer confidence where contracts are made without any face-to-face contact between supplier and consumer. These new regulations apply where goods or services are sold to consumers either on the internet or through digital television, by mail order, including catalog shopping, by phone, or by fax. The key features of the regulation are: 1. The consumer must be given clear information about the goods or services offered. 2. After making a purchase, the consumer must be sent a confirmation. 3. The consumer has a cooling off period of 7 working days, and the consumer must be given information on how to cancel, and for contracts with no specified end date, the customer must be sent details as to when and how the contract can be terminated. 4. There are new powers for Local Trading Standards Department and the Office of Fair Trading. The seller must provide clear and comprehensible information to enable the consumer to decide whether to buy. This must include the seller's name and, if payment is required in advance, his or her postal address, a description of the goods or services, the price including all taxes, delivery costs where they apply, arrangements for payments, arrangements and date for delivery, the right to cancel the order, how long the offer or the price remains valid. In addition, in cases of telephone selling by cold call, the caller must identify the business represented and the commercial purpose of the call at the beginning of the conversation. Now let us check if you've understood the various concepts discussed in this lesson clearly. What do you call the products which under normal or reasonably foreseeable conditions of use? Safe products. What is the fault at the time of sale? Inherent fault. What do we call the carelessness by the person making a claim? Contributory. Before we end, let us briefly revise what we've studied till so far. The Consumer Protection Act was made to safeguard the consumers from the product that do not reach a reasonable level of safety. The main areas dealt with can be described as product liability and consumer safety. Defective products are defined as being those where the safety of the product is not such as a person generally is entitled to expect. On the other hand, a product will not be considered defective simply because it is of poor quality, or because a safer version is subsequently put on the market. Safe products are defined as being products which under normal or reasonable foreseeable conditions of use, including duration, present no risk or only the minimum risk compatible with the product's use, and which is consistent with a high level of protection for consumers. Wherever goods are bought, they must conform to contract. This means they must be as described, fit for purpose and of satisfactory quality. The Supply of Goods and Services Act says that certain terms are implied in every transaction for the transfer of goods, and that the goods must correspond with the description given, be of satisfactory quality, and be fit for the purpose. If the goods do not correspond with the description or are not of satisfactory quality or are not fit for purpose, then the customer can reject the goods and is entitled to his money back. These new regulations apply where goods or services are sold to consumers either on the internet or through digital television by mail order, including catalog shopping or by phone or by fax.